Hello everybody, I'm Charlie Cummins and I own Phoenix Masonry Training Center. We teach men and women how to lay brick, block, and stone, and we guarantee that you'll be working in the masonry business for top dollar in 6 to 10 weeks after you complete our Master Mason course, or we'll double your money back guarantee. Alright, people have been reading my website, and I'm getting a lot of masonry contractors and so forth calling me wanting to know what kind of scaffold to use. You know, they make a lot of different kinds of scaffold. A lot of people have read some of my websites where I talk about how I built scaffold up in Alaska. I always use Safeway or Trico scaffolding, 6-foot frames, walk through, etc. and so forth. And I also built all my scaffolding and picked it up with a forklift and moved it from one side of the building to the next. But anyway, we'll get into that a little bit later. Now this is my opinion. You can take it or leave it. Now on scaffold, any walls that are 10 foot or less, use veneer jacks. If you don't know what veneer jacks are, then Google them, okay? They're perfect for bricking houses going 10 feet tall. You can also use them to scaffold ditches. I've used them, you know, they come in real handy. Now any walls that go under 30 feet tall, I always use walk-through, 6-foot walk-through, Safeway or Trico or copycats. I tried to use scaffold as made in the USA, but get them wherever you can, whatever you gotta get. 6-foot frames are very common. They're everywhere. Okay. Now, in my opinion, the way I built the scaffold, and I pre-built it, and I moved it around from one side of the building to the next and everything else, to me, that's faster. I'm not a big fan of crank-up scaffold, where you got cranks. I've seen too many people broken arms, hands, and all this kind of stuff. But if you go with crank-up scaffold, I think the green machines look pretty good. You know, it was made by a masonry contractor who, you know, he started making it. It works real good. Some of these people, their scaffolding is, I mean, you're not, in other words, when it comes to scaffold, I always believe in trying to see how much material I can get in the wall, not how much material you can stock on a scaffold before it breaks down or anything. I mean, you know, everybody does it a little bit different, okay? In other words, I think the best way to do, whenever you get to where you want to go better than tubular scaffolding, walk through scaffolding and everything else, look at Fraco, look at your Mast Climbing machines. You know, especially with Fraco. Fraco is very good. They've been around a long time and everything else. Fraco makes a good elevating scaffold. I know years ago, I'm talking 40 years ago, 45 years ago, I went to a masonry convention in Las Vegas. And they had some of the Mast Climbing scaffold there. They were running them up and down and everything else, and I'd never seen it before, you know. And so I was talking to a contractor who had bought a bunch of it. And he had been using the crank-up scaffolding and everything, and he said he had stopped using it and that he was using the Mast Climbing scaffold. And he could tell I was asking him questions, you know, about how fast does it go up, does it go, you know, how fast does it operate, how do you get on and off of it and everything else. And he cut me off real quick, because 40 years ago I was a lot younger, you know, and he was older than me then. And he just cut me off and said, hey, we ride it down for coffee breaks, go back up, and then for lunch we drive it, ride it down, up and down, up and down, so it's plenty fast. This kind of scaffold works is when you go from, in my opinion, when you go from tubular scaffolding or walk-through scaffolding frames, scaffold frames, Safeway or Trico or whatever, then think about the elevating. I mean, I like the mast climbing machines. That's just all the way, that's what I do. Now, the people ask me how I did it up in Alaska. You always got some spare time on the job. I don't care who you are or what you're doing, you always, after work, after everybody goes home, Saturdays, Sundays, on rainy days, different things, you got time to pre-build scaffolding. And the way I always did it is I would go 3 frames wide and 3 frames high with screw jacks in it, all the braces. I'm talking OSHA approved, walk boards for the side arms with walk boards for the bricklayers. I pre-built everything. They'd be OSHA approved with everything you needed, all the boards and everything. And if you build 8 or 9 of these sets, you got enough scaffold there to go 180 feet or so, okay, by pre-building them. And the way I would do it is me and another good, hard-working scaffold builder knows what they're doing. You got to have 2 people who know what they're doing and a forklift. But we could put up 180 lineal feet of scaffold in 3.5 or 4 hours. That's 3 wide, 3 high, okay? Now, whenever we got, because up in Alaska, you're going in the ground, you got 4 feet of block under the ground and everything else, and so you always got plenty of time. Then whenever we'd get the walls built up 4 feet, then in 1.5 to 2 hours, me and one other guy, me on a forklift, we'd pick the scaffold up, 3 frames, 3 wide, bring them in, set them up against the wall, perfectly level and everything else in 1.5 or 2 hours. Now that's pretty good. When you got less than 6 or 7 hours with 2 men, 180 or 90 feet of wall, that's pretty good. That's to me, that beats the cable crank up scaffolding, okay, using Safeway or Trico walk-through frames, all right? So for just a little bit more money, I mean, when you're going over 40 feet high and all this, I mean, Fraco has got the hot setup. I mean, any corners, attachments, and everything else, to me, that's the way to go. So to sum up what I just said, if Google veneer jacks for going up to 10 feet. That's inside schools and a lot of corridor walls that just go 10 feet high, 10, 11 feet high. Veneer jacks work real good. Google them. You'll see them. They're very inexpensive. They work out real good. I mean, they've been bricking houses with them for years. At least in Texas, they've been using brick houses. I haven't run into them in a whole lot of places. Colorado, Louisiana, some of them didn't know what they were and everything else. So veneer jacks work real good for 10 feet. As far as, like I said, I pre-built the scaffold. I just told you how we did it. If you want to know more about it, contact me and I'll tell you how we did it and everything else. And then, of course, if the walls go 4 or 5 more frames, well, you already got 3 of them up, so just adding on is no big deal. I have picked these up 5 scaffold frames high, 3 at a time. After you get the wall up and everything else, you break them down. I've moved them 5 frames high with a forklift. You pick them up, move them to the other side of the building. Got to be real careful. But as far as going 30 feet high and all that, with 4 frames, anything under 30 feet, this is a way to move them, because then you, like I said, if you don't have enough frames to scaffold the whole building or whatever, then you can pick them up and move them around. So that pretty well sums up this little episode here. Just remember, we train men and women to lay brick, block, and stone. Takes 6 to 8 weeks, 250 to 300 hours of hands-on training. And when you finish our training, you'll be able to lay 150 modular brick in 1 hour. You'll be able to lay 50 8/16-inch block in 1 hour or less. You'll be able to build all your corner leads out of brick and block using a 4-foot level. The final test is you'll build a 2-foot square brick chimney or pier, lay 100 brick in 2 hours or less, and build that same size pier out of 8-inch block and lay 24 block in 1 hour and 15 minutes, 1 hour and a half, somewhere around in there. Whenever you can do that, you can go anywhere in the world and you'll get top dollar as a brick block layer, okay? Period. Any crew in the world, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, England, I don't care. You'll be able to get top dollar. We work with employment staffing companies. They're going to see, and they can get you a job anywhere in the United States. They're going to see that you get top dollar. The reason they want you to make top dollar is because the more money you make, the more money they make. So it's a win-win situation for everybody. 60 or 70% of everybody we've trained, they start contracting, okay? This is a real easy business to get into. With a wheelbarrow and a chopping hoe, you're a contractor doing repair work and so forth and so on. So any information, there's our phone number and everything. Give us a ring, hit the subscribe button. Got any questions, call me. I'm an open book. I'm here to help you. If I don't know the answer, I know somebody to call to get the answers. I can answer anything that you got that you want to know about the masonry business. That's it, folks. Have a good day, and adios. Goodbye.